Hello, everybody. You are on Becoming Quantum Conscious on United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 107.7 and 105.3, broadcasting out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana, also on Roku, cable television, X, YouTube, and the UPRN Talk Radio website. And we're really glad that you're with us today. And today we have astrologer, but Egyptian astrologer, but astrologer of all kinds of astrology, Corina Crysler. She was my housemate for 3 months in France and just exposed me to so much of what I did not know about astrology. One of the most brilliant minds. I don't know how you can be so young and be so smart, but anyway, I welcome Corina to the show. Hi, Corina.
Thank you. Thank you, Bart. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and of course you're living in Egypt now, Cairo. You're
Yeah.
doing tours of all kinds of nature with your
Yeah.
husband, who's been on my show, Akeem Awyan. Uh, Also, you're heading off to France in um,
April.
April.
Yeah.
But you'll be in Provence, though, so it'll be nice and sunny.
Yeah, we'll be in the tourist in Provence. I'd like to get closer to your area afterwards to visit.
Oh, well, hopefully I'll be in town. That's about the time I'm going. I'll be doing
Yeah.
tours then in May. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, with one of my favorite friends. Well, she's a Facebook friend. I feel like I know her through her work. I think sometimes it's really wonderful just to know somebody through their work, and you
Mhm.
get this presence about them that is different than personal. But that would be Ronique Fleol, who is God. She
So
is one of the best scholars I've met, at
so
least through
I'm doing my
Facebook.
my tour with her.
Yes.
Yes.
And I just can't imagine what that would be like. And a master astrologer and a master historian of biblical proportions, meaning that she knows a lot about the history of Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and lives in Maximilian St. Baum,
Yeah.
which
Grew
for
up
those
there.
grew up there, is a part of the
Yeah.
community, part of the church. I mean, you wouldn't call her one of the elders of the church because she's not old enough. Um, but she is,
She's the
like
best.
yeah, she's one of the badasses in the church of members. And if you do not know about Maximilian St. Baum, to everybody, and Grotte le St. Baum, this is where Mary Magdalene's skull is within the church. The cave is where they say she spent tons of time communing, to me, in my theory, is with star beings, for lack of a
Hmm.
word, ETs, something out there in the cosmos, because
Hmm.
that's what flows into that place.
Yeah. Well, and the legend is too that the angels ascended her from the cave to her chapel, the chapel pillion that's right above it.
Oh,
They say
really? I
that
didn't know
she
that.
ascended 9 times every day. That angels lifted her up. And you can interpret that as you wish, but there is definitely energy there of her, I think working on her final days of mastery, of connecting to the realms in which, she worked on, I think, her whole life. I mean, these are just my personal opinions, but it was my feeling when I went in there.
Well, my feeling was that there's kind of a gateway, and
Mhm.
it's in the rock itself, in the cave,
Mhm.
where she ascended out into something very cosmic. um, I never knew about the church on top until later. I was told about it. So it kind of makes perfect sense that that might be her launching pad. Maybe that would be into the cosmos, the church itself. Maybe, I don't know. But you two are doing a tour out there.
We're doing a tour. I met Veronique. I happened to find her through Google when I was starting my pilgrimage. I did that 3 months pilgrimage in France, and I wanted a professional to take me through Saint Baume. And I found her, and so she took me. And we just got along so well, and I loved her container that she provided for me because I think she, as much history as she has, she wants you to have your own experience too. And she really gave me that platform to come up with my own feelings of everything. And my work and her work are they're very different, but they are in the same realm, I guess you could say. But the way we come about information is different. And it was just such a beautiful friendship and union. So one of my personal experience with being with her was I really wanted to bring women to this place to heal, to activate this type of power, which, I work a lot with the cosmic womb. And I thought this is where women have to go to remember, to be activated, to call on this land and all the history and memory and knowledge that's there. And so that's my intent. And of course, the history part is not my wheelhouse. So she's going to take care of that for our tour. Yeah. Well, I'm going to do a lot of the rituals.
That sounds wonderful. I think you're being modest because you know so much about so many things. But Veronique is amazing with all of that. I if I go to St. Baume, I'll be looking her up. That's for sure. Which is a wonderful place. So tour in April, and then tours in Egypt with your husband, Akim Awyan. And you use astrology with the tours by finding out the best times to be in places.
Yeah. So my France one in particular, I've had Veronique booked for almost a year because she's very busy. And there is so much happening at the beginning of 2025, in particular Venus retrograde. And the Venus retrograde has a star point in Aries, in 2 degrees Aries, which is very Sekhmet energy. It's also very Magdalene energy. And I wanted to do this type of work, this rebirth or resurrection type of work during this Venus retrograde, because the Venus retrograde is possibly one of the, I would say, from what I'm seeing in Egypt and what I see in a lot of the ancient text is probably the most sacred retrogrades of all the planets. And it's a 40-day, 40-night retrograde. So we can automatically go into how many different stories are around 40 days and 40 nights. And it's when Venus really changes. She changes from going either in a morning star or an evening star to the other aspects. So it's a very strong transformational journey of the heart.
What are the dates of that time for the Venus retrograde?
The Venus retrograde starts March 1st and goes to April 11th. And her star point is on March 22nd, which is Magdalene's birthday. So we're going to France we start in early April because there's also too much going on in March too. I want to get rid of, or I shouldn't say get rid of, I want to get the total lunar eclipse under our belt before I ask people to travel. Which is on March 14th. So we have a lot. We have kind of quite a activation in 2025 right off the start.
Yes, it
Um,
is. And so when you're doing this process with this
mhm,
Venus retrograde and the
mhm.
eclipse, how are you going to be preparing for that? What would you suggest other people comparing? Or maybe you can give us an answer for both of those at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Okay, so Venus retrograde is really a time of death and rebirth. And you want to think of it like almost almost how I see the temples being used in the ancient times when we would walk into the water and like submerge ourselves and then kind of come up, almost like a baptism or like a resurrection aspect. And this cycle of going like this,
Hmm.
in astrology is very important. And that's very much how the Venus cycle works. So she works in a 5-pointed star cycle. So she forms a 5-pointed star, and a star point hits one of those points. So to prepare for an Aries star point activation, I would call on our Mama Sekhmet, who is the Egyptian netter of basically clearing the path and really standing in our personal power. And she has a lot of destructive qualities to her because most of the time obstacles need to be cleared in order for us to have that transformative process or to stand in our evolutionary path. So first of all, I probably want to know where Aries is in my birth chart, if I have any Aries planets, or what area of my chart is being activated. For me, I'm right at my ascendant, so it has a very powerful connection to my soul line.
Hmm. I'm
And
I'm Aries rising, so just to throw
there
that
you
in
go.
there.
Same thing. I'm Aries rising too, so it's going to be a big one for you. It's along your soul line. So to answer that question, I think to go backwards a little bit would help people really set this up, which is the Mars retrograde that happens first, which starts on December 6th and goes to the end of February. And Mars and Venus are really, the ultimate archetypes of the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine energies. And Mars doing a retrograde first, beginning in Leo and going back into Cancer, I think is the clearing that we can really look at in order to completely embody the Venus energy of the resurrection energy. And Mars going back into Cancer, so it's going back to the mother. Mars being the planet of war and wisdom. Mars doesn't work on an egotistical or egocentric level. It works with wisdom. So it's not fighting for something that's very ego driven. It's fighting for something that has a lot of wisdom attached to it. And going back into the sign of Cancer, the mother, Isis, is, I think, a really strong calling to see, those emotional things that have happened to us that deeply, deeply affect us in our life, that almost create like a wounding in somewhat of a wallowing way where we can't let it go. It's something really hard to let go of. I
So
think a
so
lot
with
of
this,
sorry, go ahead.
no, so would that mean that if you are starting to sabotage your life or things are working against you, you might start asking, how how did I create this in my childhood? And and what is that pattern that seems to be in my
Yes.
face these days?
Yes. So a lot of mother wounds can come up, whether it's our mother or mothering, could definitely be a big part of this. But also, yes, childhood, were we nurtured for our nature? And if we weren't, what wounding occurred around that we carry deeply throughout our lives? And a lot of it can be quite subconscious because Cancer is a very, um, like it's at the lowest part of light in the chart. So we have to it's ruled by the moon. We have to like dig into these things and really have, a space to let the hidden be seen. And
so the deepest parts of the shadow may start coming up for people.
that's right.
And if you're not dealt with it, it could be a little regressive or painful because you sabotage yourself that way. As a way to kind of bring it up, it's like, pay attention, pay attention.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you some real crap here.
Yeah.
So we just give this as a warning, and not to tell people to be afraid, but to be aware.
To be aware and understand, yes, there might be fear attached to it, but it is controlling your life, whether you're aware of it or not, because it is working so deeply in the subconscious. Why do we make decisions the way we make them? Why do we choose certain things? Why can't we create the reality that we really desire? It's these emotional wounds that create these obstacles in our expansion and on our evolutionary path. And Mars is coming backwards into this chart saying, no more. Let's fight, for really who we are and how we want to stand in this really new awakening age. But we can't carry all this old stuff with us. We can't. It's low frequency. It keeps us lower. It keeps us in our safety zone. A lot of times it keeps us in where we feel safe. But feeling safe often keeps us small too. So before we hit this Venus retrograde, we get kind of hammered with this Mars retrograde and a total lunar eclipse in Virgo, which is very much, I look at both of the energies almost like the sweeping end of the dragon's tail. When the dragon comes in and burns everything down, and then whatever's sort of left over, the tail kind of takes care of it all. we're going to be clobbered by the tail.
Okay. But in an optimistic way, it's kind of like, well, I got a clean slate to build something else.
Yeah. We're moving in such progressive times. And one of the beautiful things that happens in 2025 is Uranus also goes into Gemini after being in Taurus for a long time. It will retrograde back, so it's not going to be fully in its expressed energy, but we'll be sort of activated with really accessing information in a different way that's very soul driven and very remembering, I guess, is a good word of how we used to think and how we used to collect information and all of these beautiful things. And then Pluto in Aquarius as well, trining Uranus is so progressive. So if we hold on to the past and our past wounding, then we miss sometimes the energy that's right in front of us that can really change our lives and the collective as well, which is really our cosmic call to action right now, is to be better, to contribute to a collective change.
Yeah. That sounds wonderful. I don't think we've really covered this fully, so I want to go back to it. Is how will you be approaching Venus retrograde in your life with this? I mean, is there going to be things that you're going to be doing particularly to facilitate this in a bigger way? Because that's what astrology is taking the opportunities that the planets give you to be directed.
Yeah, so I recently became a mother for the first time, and to a beautiful baby girl, and she's pure magic. But I was a single girl, very independent woman for most of my life, and transferring into motherhood has been, a wonderful gift, but also quite, it's a wake-up call in terms of how now you live your life. And one thing my daughter has really inspired within me, even when I was pregnant, was to really fight for who I am and not to hide it anymore. Because I often hide. I have since I was quite young, you know, how I receive information, maybe what I know, what I think, you know, my methodologies and things are quite different. I've never had a template, you know, to really work from. I've always kind of had to work with a gnosis, like my moon and Uranus are together in Scorpio. So the way I've sort of brought in information has always been connected to something not tangible. So where the Venus retrograde is hitting my chart in particular, and the calling is to really stand strong in myself. So I have to look at those things that prevent that. So the fears I have of being seen, the fears I have around, you know, being judged, the fears I have of, you know, probably not resonating with a lot of people or activating them. You know, I have to really create a strong container of self, and not in an egotistical way, just in a my true nature way, and fight for those things. And it would probably be a very similar, like the way I came about it is maybe different for everyone, but I would say that there is a similar thread probably for most people to do the same thing, is to really look at, like, if I stand in my power, what am I afraid of? And how do I go forward, regardless of the fear? And that's the energy segment. And I think Magdalene too can really inspire within us, you know. The way I look at segment, though, that's an aspect within ourselves that we all have, that warrior archetype within ourselves, the holy rage that can happen, that helps us release. The wisdom behind the warrior energy that we all have. Where Magdalene was, you know, a person that would really, in my opinion, I don't know this for sure, but what I resonate with is that she was a master at embodying the teachings that ancient Egyptian philosophy was based on. And so she, to me, is an inspiring mentor because of that reason. And I think if we looked at the Egyptian teachings in that way, like, okay, these are archetypes that are part of nature that we have within ourselves, and how do we access them? Then I think, you know, we become whole. As his grandfather used to talk about, our sesh would be healthy, you know, our spirit would be healthy by embodying all these different archetypes. And they happen to be activated at different times. So our segment energy is being activated now. So how are you going to fight for yourself?
Wow. You know, when I look at Venus, not astrologically, but the goddess, as well as how I interpret Venus in my own body, there's a multiplicity of prosperity of possibilities. And, you know, she's, you know, either she's the big woman, or she's the very attractive woman, depending on what culture. But both of them have this bountifulness about possibilities. And so Venus launches what the sun is giving to us in a feminine way. And so all of these possibilities, when I meditate with Venus energy, seem to be nurtured and brought out. And so maybe after we have cleansed and looked at ourselves through Mars and Venus, maybe we are ready for that proliferation of possibilities.
Yes. And if you think about it from like a cosmic womb standpoint, my interpretation of, you know, Venus energy is very much about being in your heart's resonance, right? And leading with that energy. And to birth anything, or co-create. Even if you want to co-create, your desire and your heart have to align. So for the energy to either expand out in a co-creation level or expand out in a birthing level downward, which Venus does both, she can do both, morning star, evening star energy, you have to align with the heart. Otherwise the energy doesn't go anywhere.
Wow.
It stays in the sacral or the root or the third eye, but they don't all align. So by accessing that heart coherence, yes, co-creation, abundance, prosperity, health, wealth, passion, love, all of those things are so possible.
Wow.
Yeah.
Boy, this is a good 4-month plan for everybody to be really looking at what is upsetting you and start dealing with it in your heart and your soul and your emotions, and just coming to terms of peace with it right now, so you can be ready for this next phase with all of this. In the eclipse, how would you think that would come into effect with all of this?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a good, perfect segue too.
I mean,
So the nodes change January 28th. We've been in an Aries Libra eclipse cycle, and the nodes are going to turn to Virgo and Pisces at the end of January, which hold a very it's probably one of the most complex areas or consorts of the birth chart, because in one area you're trying to liberate and connect to limitless energy, and the other it can be really stuck in the past and in pain and in our past lives. So the total lunar eclipse is going to be in Virgo, and the south node will be activated. And the south node is the past. It's the energy that is repeated. It's the cycles that are repeated. It's a lot. Often our insecurities and the things we're afraid of, the south node can really show us how to break these chains when we have awareness. So in Virgo, there is going to be sort of this, and an eclipse is sort of like it's a wild card. It's a portal, right? It's a portal of change. It changes the trajectory of timelines often. And in Virgo, we have to look at our pain and the pain from the past. My belief system is that Virgo is ruled by Chiron, not by Mercury. And Chiron is the healer in the chart. So it's time to heal, and the solar energy that will be blocked basically on the eclipse is coming from a point of liberation. So we have to understand where we're blocking ourselves in the suffering or the pain that we want to be liberated from, and end cycles. So we not only have this Mars retrograde energy kind of telling us the same thing, this lunar eclipse is also doing the same thing. And we're moving into the next 2 years of this sort of energy of healing from the past. And we have to take responsibility, for our past within that, or we have to take responsibility of how we narrate our lives and our choices. And really look at that in a way of how can I change?
yes. And what I want to ask you a question in regards to that. It's not only our personal story, which that is the most paramount thing, is if you change personally, you change the world. Also, to begin the healing of maybe your culture or your society, groups, families, those types of works also work at this time. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, for
All
sure.
right, all right. So I need to do just the call letters here. I
Yeah,
wanted to
sure.
let everybody know that you're on Becoming Quantum Conscious. My name is Bart Sharp, and you are on United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.7 and 105.3 3 out of New Orleans, Louisiana. And we're also on Roku, X, YouTube, Facebook, and other internet platforms. And today we have Corina Crysler at www.corinachrysler.com. And let me spell that last name, Crysler. And she's also doing, you do astrological readings of magnitude. I've had a reading from her. It was quite profound, complex, detailed, gave me a lot of direction for my year. So you work all over the world, like everybody that has a computer these days. But also you're doing tours with your husband, Hakeem Awyan, and using astrology, but also helping open these up through ceremony. And you are doing a tour with Ronique Fleon, April in Provence region, Saint Baume, Grotte Saint Baume, Marie de la Mer, and many other places. What were the dates for that? I forgot that one.
The 3rd to the 14th of April.
Okay. Beautiful time to be in Provence because it's on the coastline. So therefore it's going to be sunny.
So not too hot. Not too hot yet.
Not too hot. It'll be really nice, actually. Provence gets warm in the summer. And where I stay in the Languedoc in April, it's cloudy. And we see, sun sometimes. I kind of like it. I like the cold weather. But,
Me too.
It starts breaking in May. Yes, you'll get to have a little bit cold weather, being you grew up in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah, they have like by where I used to live, I guess. They just got 5 feet of snow.
Wow.
So,
And you used to live in a cabin that was on a lake,
in the woods.
almost like a tiny home. Out with 5 feet of snow around you and stuff like that.
Yeah. Back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm in the desert.
For good reason, because Hakeem is your perfect guy because when you and I were housemates, you had this passion about Egypt, and I had never met anybody that knew more about Egypt than you. And so I was kind of guff-gawed by it all. And here you meet this guy that always astounds me with his information. So talk about a match made in heaven. Yeah. So
he's amazing.
Yes, he is. He is at that. I wanted to ask you because, well, first I wanted to review dates and then have a question for you. With the Mars retrograde and the Venus retrograde and the eclipse, what are those dates again? Because we've been talking about that, and I want to make sure everybody kind of gets those on the calendar.
Yeah. So Mars retrograde is from December 6th to February 24th. Venus retrograde is from March 1st to April 11th. And the total lunar eclipse is March 14th, which also actually starts a Mercury retrograde on the same day. So that's going to be fun.
It is. It is something to pay attention to in a big way. We always talk about this time that we're going to jump into being light beings of magnitude, and even the Gene Keys author Richard Rudd says that by 2050 we'll be a luminous on our skin. And well, if you're going to get to a place of that type of light beingness, which to me is kind of the ultimate target that we're going for, is to be of light that has no separation between other people. Right now, it seems like that's like plowing through 10 brick walls right now. But, we're going to have to do this type of work if we're going to get there.
Yeah. And I think like one of my favorite prayers that I say to my daughter every night, that is Hakim's grandfather's prayer, is the light surrounds me, the light moves through me, I am the light. And I think if we embodied this prayer, which I want my daughter to embody even in her subconscious mind right now, then, you know, I'm not sure if I look at it like it's like an attainable thing, more of a daily life choice, you know, to work with light. Because if you stripped us away from the physical body that we're in, then what are we? And my answer has always come to light. So I'm not sure if it's something to reach per se in like a timing, more of an embodiment that we have to do every day. And I think
I'd say moment to moment, but that's just me.
Yeah, moment to moment for sure. Yeah, absolutely. But I think in terms of looking at it like unity, like a unity consciousness level, I think that's what Pluto and Aquarius is really going to help us obtain, which we're in now for the next 20 years. And
Yes.
but it's going to start off a little rocky, you know, because we've been living in some pretty destructive and hidden in hidden places for a really long time. And it's quite funny because Hakim's grandfather, I mean, I talk about him a lot because he's like, I think I've said this before, but you know, he's someone that I just love so much that I've never met. But Hakim says that him and I kind of have the same way of thinking, and we just come to it in different ways. But he talked about the phases of the sun and being in the moon phase for such a long period of time, and which is when the sun goes, when it sets and it goes in the darkness when we don't see it. So there's a lot hidden because it's not illuminated. And now we're moving into the time of Kepler, which is when the sun goes above the horizon. And we have this sort of sunset. So we're moving into the light. And he was talking about this in the 80s, that we were coming up to this time soon. We were in the moon period for a very long time. It's one of the longest stages of the sun. And you can look at this in a very similar way of the age of Aquarius, which a lot of people are talking about. You know, a lot of astrologers are talking about being in the age of Aquarius now that Pluto is in Aquarius, which I'm not sure. Like an age is around 20,000 years. And my personal opinion would have been it would have been activated in December of 2019. And but I definitely would say that Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus going into Gemini this year will help us understand the light, because we're working ultimately with air energy, and air energy is ultimately what unifies us as a collective.
And you told me this once, and I know that I'll probably never paraphrase it as well as you would say it, but Pluto is on the edge of this solar eclipse. So when we become a master of our Pluto energy, we open to this huge possibility of really being in communion with something greater than we ever known before, which would be the universe. But it's more of a personal application.
Yeah, so Pluto is the evolutionary planet. It is the planet of power, and it will take you to the pain. You know, it will take you to those places that you have to see. Otherwise, you like we were just talking earlier in this session, you know, if you don't address those things, you stay in a cycle and they control your life. So Pluto often is, when we have Pluto transits in our chart, they can be quite difficult. They can be very destructive and really activate a lot of change. But when we come through them, it's like we're not the same person. We've probably worked with lifetimes of stuff that we need to resolve. And that's the thing with Pluto. When Pluto goes around the birth chart, 248 years. So it's a long time, or sorry, 284 years. Got that backwards. So where Pluto is transiting in your chart, especially on a progressed level, you can kind of like look at those themes in your birth chart to really understand, like, what have I come here to evolve from? And often, as an evolutionary astrologer, that's Pluto is one of the main ones I go to let people know, okay, how can you transfer your pain into your purpose in this lifetime? What do you need to look at in order to evolve? And if you're talking about wanting to move into being in the light, we gotta go there. It's because it's in the darkness that we find the light.
So in evolutionary astrology, when you do a chart with that, because that's a lot what you do in some of your work, is you go into the relationships of people that you were raised with in relation to everybody's astrological alignments. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, so I work a lot with the outer planets, and because they create sort of, they hold the biggest challenges, let's say. When Mercury's transiting, or Venus is transiting, or Mars is transiting, they're quick, right? And they have a lot to do with our conscious life, but the unconscious, is if we don't deal with the unconscious, then nothing really gets resolved. So nothing changes if nothing changes. So when I look at a birth chart, I go really to the outer planets and the nodes, the north node and the south node, and look, okay, so where are you stuck, and what's creating those obstacles, and what is the call to action to release that pattern?
As a shaman and doing energy work in the shadow, what I see is that if something is resolved with shadow aspects, we quit repressing that energy, and we use a lot of energy to keep things repressed. And we don't even know we're doing it, but it kind of just zaps us or takes away from our life force every day of our life. However, if we really resolve it, and the energy starts to then come forth and become proactive, in other words, it gets applied to what your dreams are in present tense. So when you're talking about Pluto energy and these deep chasms of repressed stuff that might be even lifetimes, we're talking about big stuff. And when we're talking about a chart like what's in retrograde with Venus and Mars, it's directing it even more so. So this is a time for the world to look at how we're repressing a lot of stuff and looking for superficial answers to fulfill it. That's kind of what I see the challenge for the world right now. And so we got to dig deep, folks.
And rebel. This is a revolutionary time. We cannot stay in the same systems that have kept us down for so long, or that have taught us to move away from our spirituality, move away from our hearts, move away from, really being our unique selves, because no one's the same. No lifestyle is perfect not every lifestyle is perfect for everybody. We have to really, that's what this Venus retrograde is like. Who am I, and what does my path look like, regardless of the system I was brought into? And there will be a rebel. There will be a lot of revolutionary or energy and rebelling against what we've been put into. We can already see that in the world.
Yeah.
People are not they're not listening anymore to the noise. They're starting to think for themselves and activate all of those senses that we actually have. And that's the ancients. The ancients, like Hume's grandfather talks about 360 senses. Like, we've talked about what would happen if we actually allowed ourselves to step into that potential. We wouldn't stay in the same system that we know now. And I think as light beings, that's one of the first things we have to just really understand is,
Yeah.
our potential that we have as human beings.
Also, just recognizing that you're so much bigger than the system and that you're
Right.
not a victim of it. So you
Yeah.
can dance with it. It's maybe not destroying the system, but learning to interact with it differently, and therefore it starts to change. Because
Yeah.
you're not in a resistance and reaction to it anymore, or
Yeah.
afraid of it.
Yeah.
You're empowered in your life instead.
Yeah. And you can choose that within your personal choices. It doesn't mean you have to go out and protest and do all, like, make the choices that are authentically aligned to you and what you want. And, like I always say, like, if we were all just nice to each other, the world would be a totally different place. And understanding, like, if we're all connected, then we're we are the lowest frequency out there, or we are the highest frequency out there. But we have to understand that we're doing this all together. The last time Pluto was in Aquarius, we had the French, American, and Industrial Revolutions, and Saturn was also in a water sign like it is now. So I think it looks differently. I think technology looks differently. Like the way we fight for things looks different. But I would expect that type of energy, especially coming into once we get through some of 2025, where people can kind of feel empowered again and awakened to themselves. Then I think a lot will change. I'm telling a lot of people, and I think I said this the last time we had our talk when you asked me, what would you leave people with? And I said, stay in your bubble. I think that's what I said, at least. And I would really suggest that still, when we work with a lot of the air energy and the fire energy that's going to come through, we have to have a really strong container. So, like, I don't really look at it like a bubble, like you're protecting yourself, because I don't really believe in that. But it's like, what are you willing to let your energy go into? So you don't want to leak your energy to the things that are low level, like low frequency, like fear and the news and all this stuff that, kind of creates a yucky feeling in our life, or anxiety or fear. But how can you put your energy into something that is actually inspiring and fulfilling and makes you happy? And we always have to look at those polarities, right? If we see the amount of destruction and pain in the world, there's an equal amount of abundance and beauty in the world. So it's kind of like, if you have a close container on your energy, where are you going to direct it?
Yes. The word that comes up for me is embodiment. How much can you body your dreams and your positive thoughts, and most importantly, your awareness to perceive everything around you, and to be present with that, and then direct that into, well, what would you like to apply it? As opposed to whenever you look at things, to go, oh no, this is going to be terrible, as opposed to go, oh, well, it's not what I would choose. It's interesting that it's popping up right now, and be aware of it. I'm not running away from it, but I'm not labeling it with anything. I'm keeping my focus on me, and just simply keeping that there.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the end of the show. Got 5 minutes left, and you are visiting with Corina Crysler Awyan at corinachrysler.com, and that would be Crysler. You can get readings from her, sign up for tours to France and Egypt to see all of these great stuff out there. Egypt's on my checklist, and I would do it with you guys. Um,
I love that.
so anyway, also, God, I'm getting a little blank. What happened? Um, my name is Bart Sharp. I'm at bartsharp.com. No, excuse me, bartsharp.net. If you go to bartsharp.com these days, I kind of had it hijacked by another company. I don't know
Oh,
why they did it, but it's like I don't consider myself famous or that I have a notoriety that somebody would want my website, but I've had to change my website regardless.
wow.
And so there in Mary Magdalene, France stores. Oh, I'm getting distracted. So next week, we will be having Rebecca Jeffers and be talking about archetypal stories. She's a therapist that uses archetypal techniques and tools to explain about our lives. It should be a lot of fun. We're talking about uh, women who run with wolves types of themes and stuff, so that'll be really great. Um, so, Corina, we're coming down to the end. Can you give any parting wisdom or messages for everybody, or just a message for the world?
I think two things. One is make this process romantic. Make going
Mm-hmm.
to the underworld and looking at these things, meaningful, and really allow yourself to connect to like you, because it's the whole point of this. So try to make it romantic. And I think, with Mars and Venus trying to realign and rebalance in our hearts, and to kind of release the past, that holy longing that we have for our lives, the thing that is meant for you, is. So get really clear, I think, on what that is for you, and possibly look at the fears around what is preventing you, or the things that you're holding on to that you're ready to let go of. So there's room for that to materialize in your life.
That's good wisdom. Um, really love having you on the show.
Me too.
Hopefully, we'll see each other in France or Egypt sometime. Great places to be. If you say that, oh, I can't get there because of yada, 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 uh, why not live out of that fear, let go of that fear, and say, what are the possibilities of me going on such excursions in my life? And
Mm-hmm.
open that possibility, because I think that's what Venus is trying to teach us, is
Yeah.
to live in that expansion. Living your dreams helps the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Changes. It's life changing. It really is. So I think that's great. If you put the blocker up right away, then of course it's not going to happen. But if you say yes, then it's amazing what the universe does to make it happen for you.
Yes, and it may not even be that one thing. It might be something else that is just as cool. Uh, but you have to say yes and look at your Mars and Venus stuff. So thank you so much, and
Thank you, Bart.
check out Corina. She does great astrological readings of magnitude, and we'll see everybody next week.
Thanks, Bart.
All right, we'll see y'all next. Bye bye.